so that was my principal motivation for being a lawyer, just the whole battle for equal rights. But embedded in that was an understanding that my parents had worked way too hard to do something as simple as have the right to vote, not pay a poll tax. And so within that, the notion of not being involved in the civic life of our communities wasn't in my DNA. And I would say for most kids my age, and I'm 64. And so I tried to carry that at least belief with me in everything I've done, that whatever we do, is it being done in a way that everybody gets to participate if they choose to.
You know, it's interesting you draw upon your own family experience and how much that was a motivator for you. I was remembering back when I was a young pastor and arguing with in my denomination and in our local church for the right for women to be ordained as deacons and pastors. And someone stopped me and said, okay, what is this with you? What's motivating you? And I had to really think about it and realized, my mother. My mother probably was born out of season, Ron. She's probably a better pastor than I am and would have made a great pastor if she was born in a different time, And it occurred to me that, unbeknownst to me maybe, this was not just about a principle so much as it was a personal motivation. That then the principle becomes important, but you're really motivated by the story, right? Yeah. By the nature of that what's going on in your own family history.
Well, I think for those of us that are of a generation that have seen people denied the right to live where they wanted, love who they wanted, study where they wanted, be what they wanted, just for some arbitrary decision that girls can't come here, black people can't, Hispanic, but you see that and you realize how corrosive that effect can be on somebody's life of having their dream denied and having to not be what God intended for them to be. Is not only hurtful to them, but it's hurtful to society. I was at a dinner Friday night with the management committee of our law firm, and it's a great law firm. I guess I can say Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. And we started in LA, and our managing partner had some real nice words about me and was bragging on all that I did in Dallas. And I love needling and reminding my friends in California who sort of imbue themselves with this fiction that California is so much more progressive than Texas. But I remind them that both of their African-American mayors, first African-American mayors, Tom Bradley and Willie Brown, were born in Texas.
How about that?
And around there, and I always define myself as the first black mayor of Dallas because Tom Bradley, who was the first black mayor of LA, almost became governor. Willie Brown in San Francisco. Maynard Jackson
in Atlanta
was born in Dallas.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you know his
New
grandfather.
Hope Baptist Church.
Emmanuel Cleaver. But it both shows, people that really, really are determined to do what they're going to do are going to, what's that saying? You're going to plant where you can flower. Right. You're going to go, and when you deny people that, they're going to take their talents elsewhere. And that's part of what I find fascinating about this debate about immigration. For a country that knew what we benefited from, particularly all the discrimination around the world, whether it was, the Irish or the Italians or the Jews, and all those people who came to this country after the turn of last century and flowered here and made us a better nation. We should know better. But to your main point, our mothers were the same. It was later in life. And my mom was a school teacher because that's what girls could do then.
Exactly. Yeah.
But my mother always had a passion for law, but there were no schools that would admit women or people of color in Texas when they grew up. And of all the things she was proud of, and she was one of those lifelong teachers, and there's a library named for her in East Austin. She was as proud of her service as a grand juror as anything else in Travis County, because she had seen so many young black and brown kids wrongly convicted, some put to death for crimes they didn't commit, and just was determined that if she could play any little role in creating a more just society, that she would. And I'm not so sure a lot of that, just as your mother shaped you, sort of flowed into my being. But
let's talk about justice a little bit. I think it's a word that we use in legal settings, of course, but it's also a biblical word. And it has, deep roots in our biblical story and tradition about how the children of Israel were treated unjustly, in Egypt. And then coming out of Egypt, they were given the law which was intended to create a just society.
Right.
How do we organize society in such a way that it's just? And this has been rooted in our biblical story and all of that.
Now remember, you're talking to Ron Kirk, not Gordon Keith. That's in your,
we've already done
preacher's
it.
kid.
I know where you go to church. That's right. And Michael would get on me if I didn't push you about your faith experience too. We'll get to that in a little while. But tell me what your vision of justice is. When people talk about justice, what does it mean to you?
It's interesting you said that, because I was privileged to preside over Governor Richard's funeral.
Yes.
And it was decidedly a more secular service. Mm-hmm. And they gave me just a few minutes to have my own personal comments about her. And I called on one of my good friends, Dale Williams, as I call my favorite Sunday school teacher, and he helped me remember a passage from the book of Micah, that at the end of the day, all God asks of us is basically three things, right?
Right.
Do justice, have mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And so within that, we can, it's one of those things, we can make it more difficult, but I think justice is a word that inherently means be fair.
Yeah.